very shy about making predictions 5 or 10 years out, but 2015 is exactly the kind of thing I spent a lot of time thinking about. In terms of where I'm coming from in putting this perspective together for you, I teach at Columbia Business School in the executive program, so I teach 4 executives who come to New York or around the world, 3- and 5-day programs focused on digital marketing. I also do research on topics like big data, digital marketing, measurement, in-store mobile shopping, Internet of Things. We're starting a new project. And I write books for practitioners, presenting frameworks for brands. And lastly, for the last 7 years, I've been running a conference at Columbia called the BRITE Conference, where I bring together CMOs, media companies, tech entrepreneurs, looking at this changing environment, how innovation and technology are changing the rules, changing the game for brands. Right? So along the way, I get to interact with and work with a lot of interesting companies. So based on my experiences with them and what I see them all grappling with in terms of change and technology, I wanted to put a few thoughts to kind of frame the end of the day. And if I wanted to give one overarching thought, when I think about what is happening in our world as marketers, the prevailing dynamic, I would say, is that every technology is increasing the realm of what is possible. Right? Each new technology is constantly opening up new options, positive as well as negative, risks, threats, as well as new opportunities. As marketers, our job is to be the optimists within the organization, right? The ones who see what's possible and say, look, this creates headaches. Yes, it causes complexity, but it's also an opportunity to create new value for the customers, an opportunity to build and deepen our relationship. So with that in mind, I want to share with you what I see as 6 faces of the near future of marketing. The addressable customer, technodiversity, advertising's hollow middle, invisible threats, the 2 minds of marketing, and the vanishing CMO. So the first really important trend that I see happening right now is the rise, or the renaissance, if you will, of the addressable customer. The ability for us as marketers to address, focus, communicate, and carry on a relationship with a customer on a one-to-one basis across touch points. Why is this man smiling? This is David Williams. He's the CEO of Merkle, a company that's been building databases for companies for many years. David was talking at my BRITE conference, and he told me about how, he said, just a year ago, if he had a client with a large database of their customers, and they go onto a platform like Facebook, he said, we could identify about 5% of the customers. We could match them up somehow with Facebook and find who they were. He said, today, it's closer to 45%. Very soon, we're going to be able to match up 75% of the people in our database. So we have this incredible renaissance coming now, where we used to have platforms like the US Postal System, right, which a lot of businesses were built on and huge investments in direct marketing because that was an addressable platform. You can keep a database, know who you're reaching out to, who's responding, what offers they responded to. Email became the next great addressable platform. Right now, we're moving to a state where platforms like Amazon, Facebook, Twitter, and Google are going to allow that same kind of addressability, and so we're going to be able to have a continuous set of interactions and messages and communications with the same customer with that insight into who they are. Now, are there some limitations on this? Right now, I think we've still got some places we haven't gotten to. John Steinberg, who's the president of BuzzFeed, was saying to me, he said, I would never buy television, right? When you can buy YouTube, why would you possibly communicate in a medium where you have so little information about who you're reaching? I think this is really the challenge for TV right now. And if I think about what would addressable TV look like, I think our best model so far was the last presidential campaign with Obama's, what they called the Victory Lab. The real innovation this time around was about this micro-targeting on cable television, right? Being able to get these incredibly sophisticated models of who you're getting at, pricing them at very low price points, almost like a YouTube price point, and reaching them with television buys. What about retail? We're already seeing heat maps used increasingly to create more understanding of customer behaviors and flows within retail spaces. As we start to bring in new technologies like iBeacons, apps that are communicating directly with the customers, even connected shopping carts, we may start to have addressable experiences inside the retail space. And lastly, we're going to see addressable products, more and more. 3D printing is starting to be applied in many new product areas. New Balance just applied this with some Olympic athletes who are actually taking biomechanical data and motion capture images of how they walked and run, were able to customize and print specific soles of the shoes for those athletes. The next step is to take that to the average consumer. The second trend, technodiversity. Right? We talk a lot about diversity in the workforce. We talk about diversity in the natural world. Biodiversity is very much in threat. I would say, as marketers, as business leaders, technodiversity is on the growth swing. It is going to continue to be a fact of life that the range of technologies we have to master, we have to interact with, is simply going to keep multiplying and becoming richer and more complex for us to manage. The fact is, much as we might imagine that old technologies fade away, they don't. Technologies don't die. Yes, they become less dominant. Radio, still around, still a valid medium for a lot of communication purposes. Print books, right? Sulzberger, the owner of the New York Times, was just commenting this morning at a conference. I saw this on Twitter. He said, he put a challenge out. He said, print will outlast the desktop, right? Just a few years ago, people saying, oh, print's going to be gone. Why even making print newspapers anymore? Right? No, he didn't say mobile, but he said the desktop may not even be a platform within a couple years. Print is going to stick around. BetaWorks, right, one of the biggest incubators of new tech startups in the New York scene, just put out an incredibly designed book. Print is still an interesting medium. Email is still a powerful medium. These technologies are not going away. They're shifting what their role is within our mix, within our connections, but they're still there. This was a quote from Business Insider, right? One of the more savvy, newer, super digital first publications. Everybody thinks, oh, they're so savvy, they're all mobile first. They actually say, no, we're not mobile first. We're mobile too. The fact is, we have a lot of people reading us on their mobile phones. We have people reading us on their desktops, on their laptops. Our email channel is driving a lot of traffic. So you have to manage all these different technologies and figure out how each one creates an opportunity to interact with your customer. Fundamentally, the network effects, which are shaping the digital economy, tend to create these winner-take-all scenarios, right? The fact is, no one's going to unseat Facebook. That's clear. There's not going to be a new Facebook who's the Facebook killer and replaces them as the new mass social network for sharing baby photos and social updates. The threat to Facebook is that that experience may become less relevant. Because what happens in this kind of context is, yes, it's winner takes all, but you have more and more alls that you can win, right? WhatsApp is competing in a different game. That's why Facebook bought them. Instagram is trying to be the winner take all of another kind of experience. And so we're going to find more and more of these different kinds of modalities of social interaction and communication. Each one may have a dominant platform. They may have different relevance to different customers. We have to learn to manage that. Third trend, advertising's hollow middle. We're increasingly seeing pressure on the middle of markets. We see this in the labor market. For example, Tyler Cohen, the Economist, his recent book, Average is Over, looking at how the middle class is being squeezed in labor markets all over the world. Anita Elbers, in her latest book on the media industry, showing how the long tail has not panned out quite how some people expected. Media companies are becoming more and more reliant on a few big blockbusters to deliver profitability. Meanwhile, we have a profusion at the long end of cheap and amateur-made or simply maybe professional quality but unpaid content creation. And in the middle, things are hollowing out. There's not much of a business model anymore. We're seeing the same curve, sometimes called a reverse bell curve, in the advertising industry. Right? More and more display ads in particular are shifting to programmatic, real-time bidding, other kinds of responses. Extremely cheap, huge amounts of inventories, huge downward pressure on prices, decimating a lot of the value that can be captured by publishers. At the same time, I think we're going to see more and more money spent on these higher value, higher cost opportunities for brands in terms of paid media, live television, things like sporting events, converged deals where companies like Viacom are bundling together a native ad experience and a live event buy and a traditional broadcast buy all into a large, multifaceted deal. This is where we're going to see growth at the high end of the expenditures. So where does this leave us? I think the banner ad is on the way out, certainly for branding purposes, the traditional banner ad. We're going to probably see this disappear first on mobile. I mean, Yahoo of all companies, has already said that by the end of the year, they're going to shift entirely, no more banner ads on their mobile platforms. It'll be all native content, right? They're the king of the banner ads. We're also going to see more and more things like this, right? Samsung spent $20 million, not just on advertisements, but for a whole brand integration within the Oscars, because it's such a unique experience, such a unique moment, like the Olympics or the Super Bowl, for a huge brand that's trying to make a major media spend and get a return on its investment. By the way, that was not a serendipitous moment, if you haven't heard. That was discussed with Samsung in advance, that they would do something like that selfie. The fourth trend is invisible threats. These are threats that previously have been the concern of the CIO, and more are now becoming concerns about brand reputation that marketers have to consider. Whether it's data security, right? Can I trust you with the data that I provide to you? Think about Target, the recent experience here. Frankly, I think Target had their Tylenol moment of corporate reputation, and they botched it, right? They kind of hoped, well, there have been some other big data breaches. Maybe this will just kind of get washed under the bed and nobody will remember what happened. But they've seen a drop-off in actual foot traffic into the stores. I think this is going to have a lasting impact on their brand image. But that's not all. We're seeing the whole ad market is being increasingly undermined by very sophisticated botnets that are out there intercepting our whole systems of ad bidding and ad measurement. And they're impersonating. You've got bots, somebody in this room, probably a few of you, on your computers right now that are running browser sessions that you don't even see. They're not on the screen, but they're telling advertisers that you are seeing their ads. They may even be telling advertisers that when you purchased their product, it was because you had seen an ad 2 weeks ago from them. They're retroactively creating this impression that they've been serving up value. So they're sucking value out of the ad market. This is a concern we have to be focused on. The fifth trend is about what I would call the two minds of marketing. Now, right now, if I asked you what are the two minds of marketing, I think we kind of saw them earlier today, right? The CMO and the CIO. How do we get the data scientists and the creatives to come together, the analytical and the creative? But I think we're going to see a different next stage in what the two minds of marketing are. Very soon, it's going to look more like this. Clive Thompson, in his latest book, has a great story talking about what's happened in chess since the first computer beat the grandmaster, Garry Kasparov. Now, you might say, well, why play chess anymore, right? Computers can do it better than the best human. So what's the challenge? What's the goal? Interestingly, a new form of chess has evolved since the arrival of Deep Blue. It's called freestyle chess or advanced chess. And it's actually teams of what Clive calls centaurs, except instead of half man and half horse, it's a human and a computer. What they found is, although the best computer can beat any human, no one can beat a smart human with a good computer. In fact, a good chess player using a simple laptop with good software on it that they've learned how to use can beat that Deep Blue software from IBM. And so now there's these whole new competitions going. And this is, I think, the model we're going to see in a lot of different fields. We're starting to see it in medicine, where MDs are working with Watson. They're using its machine intelligence, its machine learning, and its natural language processing as an assistant, right? Watson can't make the diagnosis. They can't make the call on what the human patient needs. But Watson can pull together and analyze millions of records, create an incredible resource for how the doctor is going to make that judgment call in the end. And that's what we're going to see more and more. We're going to see marketers that need to learn to combine their intuitive, sense-making skills of the human mind with these incredible analytical skills. So we aren't walking into that looking glass room and just kind of staring at this wall of unstructured data and kind of seeing what pops out to it for us. Watson or something like that's going to be playing a role that helps make that first sift for us, tells us what's going on in this unstructured data, and then allows us to interpret it and act upon it. As Kevin Kelly says, machines are for answers, humans are for questions. In the age of Google, answers have become incredibly cheap. right? We don't need humans anymore to come up with the answers of most questions. But the computer will never pose the question. That's going to be our job. Those are the two minds. And lastly, the sixth trend is about the CMO. Now, a lot of time at events like this, what I find is people are talking about, what's the lifetime tenure of a CMO at a firm? Is it going up? Is it going down? This has something to do with sort of the changing role. But I think the more important question is, 5 or 10 years from now, will we even have CMOs? Or will we have CMOs as we presently know them? Increasingly, as I talk to CMOs, I'm finding that the reason why they can't do their job is because they need to be more than one thing. They can't just be the CMO they used to be. They need to also be, in some sense, the chief information officer to manage and understand this technology. I was talking with Marty Hamlisch, for years, the CMO of Sony PlayStation, and then SAP, then at HP, Hewlett-Packard. He's just changed his job because he said, we couldn't do what we're trying to do with the brand if all I had any influence on was marketing, right? It's about the customer experience. Everything from the call centers to the touch points with service, that's how you create the customer experience. Talking with Neil Blumenthal of Warby Parker, Kate Spade, CMO, both of them talking about the importance of culture. You can't build a brand unless you're building a culture among your employees. That has to be part of the job. Strategy has to be part of the job. And for many of these brands, they're finding you can't really submit to the expectations of ROI and measurement unless you are at least hand in glove with the CFO. You have to build a financial model where you understand the lifetime value of your customers. Unless you have a unified financial model to drive every single marketing decision, it's simply impossible to make these judgments between, should we be creating a television show like Chipotle, or should we be posting, some kind of direct response ads which we can immediately see clicks on and prove the return to the company. You have to get into that financial model at the same level of sophistication. So I don't know what the role of the CMO is going to be. It may have a different name. It may be that it gets consumed into a larger or a different or a changing kind of role within the organization. But I think that's one of the most important questions we're going to have to solve in the near future. So I'll leave you with these 6 faces of the future: addressable customer, technodiversity, the hollow middle of advertising, invisible threats, 2 minds of marketing, and the vanishing CMO. I don't know what they're all going to look like in the next couple years, but I know that all of them are going to shape our jobs for the years to come. Thank you.
Good job. We have time for a couple of quick questions. If there's a couple of questions from the floor. Anybody? No? Okay. Yes, one from the front here. Where's the, there we go. Is it on?
Okay, could you speak to how these changes are affecting education in your field?
Education is, I think, like any field that's related to knowledge and communication of ideas, going through tremendous change. I think right now it's very early to see what the business model impacts are going to be. But I would say, that reverse bell curve, we're certainly going to see that in education. There's no question that there's going to still be a demand for extremely sort of high premium, if you will, top brand name, live in-person kind of educational experiences. But we're probably going to see a profusion of incredibly cheap and even free, but quite valuable, at least for certain contexts and certain use cases, free educational offerings. And the sort of mid-tier university of today may well vanish or at least diminish significantly.
Thank you. Any other question here?
Okay, so does Columbia have an undergraduate business program? And if so, do you teach it by any chance?
And can I get in? Was that the other bit of the question?
And can I get in?
Oh, yeah, thanks. Truth in advertising.
Sorry, we don't. We don't have an undergrad.
Can we get one here?
We've got a great MBA program.
That's very true. Very good school. Just at the end of the front there, you're doing a wonderful job.
All right, thank
Mike
you.
Runner.
It's kind of a follow-on to her question, and somebody asked in the last session. So you as a professor, what would you advise upcoming undergraduates? What field do you study now for this new world? I mean, because we all grew up in the Stone Age when you did, you studied in certain...
I'm not sure the field is the most important thing. I think in terms of actual skills, you need to learn critical thinking and you need to learn writing. A lot of people have this mysterious belief that language and written word is going away and we're all just going to be watching cat videos in the future. I fundamentally don't believe in that. And when I look at a video game that comes out and makes billions of dollars in a few days, it's because of great storytelling.
Yeah.
My niece got a degree just a couple years ago in like feminist literary studies from the University of California system. But you know what? She knew how to write. And guess what? She's working in the gaming industry. They've got her creating characters and incredible experiences for customers.
Terrific. Any other questions? One down here, and then we're going to wrap up. I will be very brief in my closing comments, I promise you all, because there's some drinks.
So David, just to follow on with that, what did you study, and how did you get from there to where you are here?
I'll just say, there to here is too long a story, but I actually studied physics and jazz composition.
Oh, now he tells us. We'd had you playing the saxophone. That's a great question. Anything else? Anyone else? No? Okay, I'll say thank you very much, David. Please, round of applause. Great job.
Thanks very much, Martin. Thank you.